Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Now before we get started, I am going to have a non-spoiler version of the video and a spoiler version of the video. Now the non-spoilery one will just have the star review and the general non-spoilery feelings I had. And of course the spoilery will have either rants or praise or just more in-depth assessment, if I can remember it. Now, if you do not wish to be spoiled about any of these books, this is the video for you. And if you are open to spoilers, you love hearing the rants and the gossip, this is the one for you. The one you're currently on is the non-spoilery version. If you are not here for the one you have clicked on, you can segue to the other one. So today I bring you the acclaimed mid-year book wrap-up. Now this is especially special because I haven't done any monthly wrap-ups this year, so nobody knows what I've been reading except for, I think, 2 reading vlogs. For now, we're going to go through every single one, and don't worry, it's not going to be too long because there are only 22 books. If you can hear any machinery sounds, our neighbours are doing something. But I think we should be right. But just in case. We'll be mostly recapping books, but I will try to remember some of the shows I've watched, and then we'll do a brief, my favourite K-pop songs of this first semester, half a year. It has gone by far too fast, but I feel like my booktube side of me has not caught up to the rest. But it's realistic, so if you come here for realism, you'll get it. So why don't we just dive on in? I have Storygraph here, which will tell me all the books I've read so far. And we actually started off the year really strong with The Prince's Bargain, which is actually book 3 of the Elves of Lesser series by K.M. Shea. I've actually got it right here. And it was a 5-star. Absolutely loved it. When going into it, I wasn't sure about it. The idea of it wasn't as exciting as the other ones. Ended up my favourite one. And isn't that how books work sometimes? So yes, first up was The Prince's Bargain by K.M. Shea. And this is the 3rd book of the series. So it follows Prince Arvel and then a translator, Myth. And she is a translator in training, and they end up getting together to translate some stuff. And it's the last book in the series. So there's a lot of things being wrapped up in the end. And it was a 5-star. The characters were great. We had some side characters. Their tales got wrapped up. And it's just fun. There is no spice in this. In most of the books I read, there will be 0 spice. I thought this one was going to be more boring because I assumed that Prince Arvel, being the more studious, bookish prince, rather than the other main characters of the previous 2, were more the fighting type. They were like the gruff military men. And in this one, he's just the bookish prince. And also, it was about the translator, Myth. I'll admit I wasn't really interested in the translation work. Okay, sue me. But in this, it actually handled it really well. There was no boredom. It was excellent. It gave bookish library vibes, but also wasn't slow in any way. I cannot recommend this series enough. It is just good, wholesome fun. Then, next up, we have Fierce Heart, which I rated a 4.5. And so Fierce Heart is by Tara Grace. and it is a Elven Alliance book. In fact, it is the first book in the series. And Fierce Heart is about a human princess who marries an elf prince so that their two warring kingdoms do not destroy each other. Because currently the trolls to the north are a really big problem and neither of them want to deal with the trolls and fight each other at the same time. So they create this alliance through a marriage alliance. And so our main character, Essie, is the human princess, and it's all in her point of view. And she marries Lasonish, which he actually has a different name, but I can't think of it right now. Yes, I gave it a 4.5. There were some bits that, I don't know, I found cringe, but most people would just see it as romantic. But I was like, oof, because it's the first book in the series, it has a lot of starting plots, the different wars and background and that sort of thing, and then our main couple figuring out what to do. If there is one thing to note about this series, is Elven shampoo and conditioner, scrub-a-dub-dub, and skincare. My goodness, the elves, shampoo and conditioner and skincare. No wonder they live for so long. I think Tara mentions shampoo and conditioner so much throughout this series. It's almost like she is trying to sell you Elven shampoo and conditioner, but it is not an actual product that you can buy. But I'm sold. I would buy it. But the fact that it is not real, yet we have so much about the Elven shampoo and conditioner. Now, Essie is really cute. Essie is just a bubbly, sort of positive thing. Sometimes I feel she's a little over positive, but it helps in the scenario they're in. And Lasonish, or Farandel, he is not your typical prince. So he's got a lot of backstory going on. A lot of backstory. And eventually you do find out bits and pieces, but he's very reserved and he says a lot of just yes. And my brother gave him a Russian sort of accent when he was reading it to me, so all I can think of now is whenever he says his one word, yes, it's just like a thick Russian accent going, yes, yes, or yes. You know, just his dialogue can be summed up as yes. That's it. Essie will go on a long rant and all Farandel will say is yes. He does not say much at all. He's a little bewildered by how happy it is. It's like the sunshine, grumpy sunshine dynamic. Very much that dynamic in this. The first book does sort of just introduce a plot line. It hasn't wrapped anything up. Then I finished Little House on the Prairie with Dad. Laura Ingalls Wilde, Little House on the Prairie, from the Little House on the Prairie series. And it was a 2.5 star. I didn't really love it. So Little House on the Prairie is about Laura Ingalls with her family. She is very young and they travel from Wisconsin to Kansas and they set up their house and everything else by a creek and on the plains. And it's a prairie, surprisingly enough. Now the next 7 books I do actually have a reading vlog for. It was my Detective Penguin series, which I really enjoyed doing. But for the quick rundown, we had Enid Blyton's book 1 of the 5 Find Outers series, The Mystery of the Burnt Cottage. And I gave it a 4 stars. The Mystery of the Burnt Cottage is about a group of children that go to investigate why this hut of this man's house burnt down. And they're going against Mr. Goon, who is the local Bobby. It's just a bit of fun. The crimes take place, a lot happens, And I still love Frederick Algernon Trotterville. Or Trotville. But it is a 4 stars. Yay. Then we have The Swamp Robber by Paul Hutchins. Again, I made some observances for that one as well. It's the book that got me into reading, and it didn't hit the same now that I'm older. But it's still a good book. It just wasn't quite the same. I gave it a 3.5 star. Good average score. The Secret 7 by Enid Blyton. And it is the first book in the Secret 7 series. And again, crime takes place. So it is about a secret club of kids that discover a mysterious happenings in the night. And some really suspicious men and their trailer of some sort holding something that's making sounds. Sneaking into a house late at night. So it was a 3.5 star book. Again, average. Next up was 5 on a Treasure Island, and it was a 3-star book. I listened to the audio. It was very average. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just felt nothing really. So it's about these 3 siblings that go to visit their aunt and uncle and cousin. And the cousin owns an island, and a shipwreck goes onto it. And they discover many different things. Again, I reviewed it in the video, so you can go click on that if you want more in-depth craziness. And then next I read Trixie Belden and The Secret of the Mansion. It was book 1 in the Trixie Belden series by Julie Campbell. And I gave it a 4.5 star. I love Trixie Belden. I don't know if you can see it, but down here I actually have a collection. I love that series. And rereading this first one, chef's kiss. I love it. I love the characters. I must admit, when I first started the book, Trixie was not winning me over. I don't know what it was when I first started reading it. On one day, I just was like, how did I like this? Like, she's so annoying. But then I came back to it later, and that vibe was gone completely. So I must have just been in the wrong mood that day. I must have just somewhere my head just wasn't in the right place. Again, I read it in this one. I think there is a spoiler section. It is about Trixie Belden, and she has a new neighbour moving in up the hill. And that neighbour is Honey Wheeler. And she is the sweetest girl around. But Honey isn't used to, country life. But she's really excited for it. So Trixie and Honey, they become fast friends. But at the same time, another neighbour, who is an old man, he collapses. And Trixie's father finds him and takes him to hospital. But meanwhile, Trixie and Honey decide to do a little snooping around the old mansion he lived in, because there is a tale that he had a hidden fortune. But everyone's like, it is a junk pile, that mansion. It is run down and everything. And there they discover Jim, a runaway. And Jim is the greatest character on earth. I love Jim. Always have. He was my first book boyfriend, or book crush, I suppose. I always thought him and Nancy, wrong series, him and Trixie belong together, and that will be canon in my head forever. It's my head canon, and it is going to stay that way forever. But I love and adore Jim. That trio of friends, and then of course Bobby, the younger brother, who pops up a lot too, are just beautiful. I love the dynamics of the group and how much they care. It really is like a found friend group, and I always wanted a found friend group like that. So it was excellent. The mystery was less of a mystery and more of a treasure hunt. So that was Trixie Belden. And The Secret of the Mansion, a 4.5 star. Yes. And then next I read The Hidden Staircase, a Nancy Drew mystery story. And it is technically book 2 because I couldn't find book 1. So book 2 it was. And it is by Carolyn Keene. And I gave it a 4.5 star. And I actually really enjoyed it. I also loved that she was about the only teen/child detective that actually followed the law. It was a miracle, and I was so happy about it. I always thought Nancy was like the rule bender kind of detective, but in these books, no. She follows the law to the T, and it's amazing. In this story, she has several things going on. One is mainly with her father, because of a railway being built. And then there's another one where these poor little old ladies are getting haunted in their house. And they're like, oh, what are all these sounds and creaks and movements happening? Like, what is happening? Could it be a ghost? And finally, part of that video was Holly Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I gave it 2 stars. Ravi Singh. He is literally the only reason. That and some of the writing techniques used. But other than that, it was not the book for me. It really wasn't the book for me. It is about, give me a sec, Pippa Fitz-Amobi, and she is doing a school project, and that involves investigating this cold case that's not really a cold case because the dumb police have wrapped it up, blaming it on Ravi Singh's brother, who was found dead in the forest. Pippa isn't convinced, but she's about the only person in town that isn't convinced that Ravi Singh's brother did it. It is said that Sal Singh murdered his girlfriend at the time, and everyone just assumes he did it because he left the house and was found dead in the woods. And they were like, well, he obviously did it and felt guilty. And Pippa doesn't think so, and neither does obviously Sal's brother, Ravi. Pippa jumps from suspect to suspect like it's like hopscotch. She jumps from one person to another in her suspects. She breaks the law multiple times. She does so many crimes that I, in fact, believe that she is the bad guy of this book series. She, along with the actual murderers, are actually bad guys and need to go to prison. But, yeah, Ravi Singh is a wonderful lad and the only redeeming character in this entire thing. It's a horrible book. I do not like it. So yes, Holly Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. She is not a good girl at all. And in fact, she gets her 2 stars. A begrudging 2 stars. Now we move on from the one that had all of that in the video. And we move on to the next ones, which were all oldies. Old favourites. So I started with Charley by Joan G. Robinson. And I gave it a 4 stars. Now, it is about a girl who is being looked after by her aunt while her mum's away. And she's got a brother, but she's sent off to stay with a different aunt. While the brother and the aunt 1 and the brother go off to the sea to get him some air because he was hurt or something. And so she goes to stay with Aunt 2. Which I think is more of a family friend than an aunt, but we'll call her Aunt 2. So she arrives in the village to find that Aunt 2 isn't there. She's not home. And so Charley decides to make the most of it and use the time to be a runaway and camp out and live her independent life because she feels a little abandoned by literally everyone. And it's like a big thing about whether she really will last out in the wilderness of this little village and the forest area, or whether she will end up going home. I did give it 4 stars because I love While She's Run Away, but I hate the other people in the book. Next up, I read 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott, and I gave it 4 stars. And so 8 Cousins follows a young girl whose father has died, and she goes to live on Aunt Hill, where all these different aunts live. And she's rather sickly and depressed, but soon her uncle, who is going to be her guardian, comes to liven up her life a bit, along with, as in the title, 8 cousins, and they're all boys. And she is the only female cousin in the family, so, she gets doted on and cared for. And yes, just a bunch of adventures with her uncle, now guardian, and all the 8 cousins. Yeah, pretty much it's just her healing from her depression and physical state after the loss of her father, and learning to be part of a family again. Then we got into What Katy Did, which is part of the Car Family series. So there you go. I didn't even know that. I just called it the What Katy Did series. And it is by Suzanne Coolidge. And I gave it 4 stars. So What Katy Did is about Katy Carr. She lives in a house with her aunt, father, and siblings. And she is a bit accident prone. She rallies the troops into rebelling against the constructs of society accidentally, and the school mom is not necessarily impressed, and neither is the aunt. But then an accident occurs, and our beloved Katy is bedridden, and it's about her coming to terms with her new state and going through that. And she's just a young girl. She's like 12 or something. So it was very tough for a usually athletic, rambunctious girl. Also in there's the cousin, who is just a perfect angel child, woman. And I've decided I just do not necessarily vibe with the angelic angel childs. Like a Mary in Laura Ingalls series. This cousin and What Katy Did, I don't vibe with the angel child. And what's with that? Because I am obviously angelic. I was myself an angel child. So that's What Katy Did. 4 stars. Next 8 books are all part of the same series by Enid Blyton, and that is the Adventure series. So this series follows 4 children, and usually a detective uncle, father, FBI agent, man called Bill. Bill shows up multiple times, so he would probably be a secondary main character. Anyway, it follows these 4 kids through many different adventures that they just seem to stumble upon, or the adventure stumbles upon them. Either way, Philip, Jack, Diana, and Lucy Ann. Philip and Diana are siblings, and then Jack and Lucy Ann are also siblings, but they are otherwise unrelated to the 2 siblings. Book 1, The Island of Adventure, got a 4.5 stars. Philip is at boarding school, and Jack and his sister Lucy Ann are there as well. But Lucy Ann and Jack do not want to go back to their uncle because their uncle is old and annoying and doesn't take care of them and is constantly yelling at them. So Philip's like, hey, let me just kidnap you and take you home with me for the school holidays. And that is just what they do. So they troop off to Philip's family, and Philip's aunt is a little concerned but soon comes around due to money. She gets money out of it. And meanwhile, their uncle is a miserly, their uncle is constantly researching. He knows nothing outside his own research and his own study. And there's also a groundskeeper, maintenance man as well. And while they're there, they notice some happenings in an island across the way. And they also stumble across a bird watcher and they slowly befriend this bird watcher, and then they find out what is really going on in this island across the way. In the book 2, The Castle of Adventure, gets a 4.5 stars. And Philip and Diana's mother, who was ill, is now better and has all 4 children under her care. And while they're at this little cottage, they see a castle up the hill. And they're like, that looks great. And Jack is like, that's a great place for birds. Because Jack is really into birds. He adores birds. In fact, birds are his life. He in fact has a pet cockatoo. Sorry, parrot. That looks like a cockatoo because it's white with a yellow crest. And I'm like, that is a cockatoo. And so due to the bird watching, again, they go up to the castle and some strange happenings are happening at the castle, of course, because adventure goes wherever these kids are. And next up we have the Valley of Adventure. Now in the Valley of Adventure, the children go on a trip with Bill, or at least they're meant to. Instead, they accidentally hop in the wrong plane and end up in a abandoned valley and trying not to be seen by the 2 bad guys that had flown the plane and kidnapped them unknowingly. There's a lot of strange happenings in the valley. These men being out there for no apparent reason and just burnt out huts and everything. And the kids are like, why are these guys here? And how do we get home? Because that's a big important part. The Valley of Adventure gets a 4.5 stars. Next up, it was the Sea of Adventure, where they go with Bill this time. Now, Bill needs to hide out. He's been known to some bad guys and he has to hide away for a bit. So he's like, you know what, I will pretend to be, again, a bird watcher, and we will go to the puffin colonies. And the kids all go with him on the boat. And they go to adventure and they're like, this will be fun. Puffins, right? The Sea of Adventure, I gave a 4.5 stars. I think it probably now is more of a 4-star rather than 4.5. The Mountain of Adventure, which was 4 stars. Their mother is like, okay, we do not need another adventure. But hey, Bill, let's take them up these mountains and we can have some donkey rides and camp, and it will be so far away from adventure they will never be able to get into an adventure because we'll be right there. We'll keep them out of trouble. As is with these kids, trouble finds them. Sure enough, poor mother sprains her ankle and Bill has to look after her and take her down to the hospital. And so the kids are just sent off on their donkeys up the mountain, with a guide, a singular guide. Anyway, the kids are abandoned up there by their guide and they have no way to know where to go back home. So they're trapped up here with hounds and mysterious mountain men, etc., etc. But next is the Ship of Adventure. And guess what? Mother is fed up with these kids always having an adventure. She's like, kids, you always seem to find something. You find some way of getting into trouble. So we're going to go on a cruise. That's right, we're not going to go to any valleys or seasides or islands or castles. No, we're going to be stuck on a cruise ship where absolutely nothing can happen, because I will be right there. I will be watching you like a hawk. I will never leave your side. The kids find a little ship, and it has a map. A map to a long lost treasure. The Ship of Adventure, which again, 4 stars. Book 7, The Circus of Adventure. Now, Bill and Mother and the kids have a visitor who is a bit full of himself. He's a bit pompous, and the kids are like, who is this guy? And why do we have to hang out? But Mum's like, well, if you don't want to hang out with Giuseppe or whatever his name is, Bill can't come on this holiday either. And they're like, oh, we really like Bill. All right, fine. We'll put up with him. Stuff happens and they end up kidnapped. And most of the book is actually focused on Jack. There's no circus involved, and that's about all I can say. I think the rest is all spoilers. Anyway, so that was The Circus of Adventure, 4 stars. And finally, I finished the series with The River of Adventure, where they go to Syria, I think it is, to have a holiday. A good old holiday, just to relax. Nothing wrong going there, except they're not, because Bill is actually tasked with going there to investigate just a really suspicious man. And the kids and that are his cover. So this time, rather than being like, we cannot get into trouble, we cannot get into an adventure, Bill is literally like, let's all just get into an adventure. So that's done. The series is done. Thank goodness. That was that series. Overall, probably a 4 stars series. There were some weird bits which I think were corrected in later versions. But yeah. It was crazy wild ride. And then I also read Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies, which I will go into in a second, but I really need a break. I need a drink, so I'll be right back. Now we're up to our final book. The final one. Finally, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies, which I gave a 3.5 stars. And I think I'm keeping with that rating. Now, in Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies, we follow Emily Wilde, who goes to a certain place in winter to note down the fairies of the area and make this encyclopedia of fairies, obviously. She is joined by Wendell Bambleby. He brings these 2 students, but the 2 students end up very quickly abandoning him. And throughout the book, she, of course, is trying to figure out the mystery of the area, the mystery of the fairies of the area, along with trying to figure out a few other things by interacting with the villagers of the area. It is meant to be a cozier fantasy, and I suppose it is, but it's got definitely some action and some things happening along the way, for sure. First up, we have Emily Wilde, who is meant to be socially awkward, but I did not find her socially awkward. I mean, she didn't love being around people, but I wouldn't call that socially awkward. I would call that being an introvert or hermitude. And yeah, constantly says she's awkward with people, and people react awkwardly to her, but I do not think it's her fault. And she loves research. But then along comes the villagers. Now the villagers, I am so done with the villagers. The villagers are so dumb. Wendell is really sociable, but he's wins people over really quickly. But I compare him to Book Hal. 100% Book Hal. Because he is a bit of a womanizer. He doesn't explain anything. He just is like, a bit blasé. He'll go out sometimes, he'll go do a research maybe, and then he'll come back and he doesn't really like paperwork. He looks at Emily and he's like, "Aw." He acts like she should know stuff when he hasn't told her anything. He's actually smart. He actually has plans in place, but he doesn't let anyone know. Like Hal. He doesn't communicate that to anyone. Again, like with Hal, he grows on you in the weirdest way. You're like annoyed at him, but at the same time you're like, ah, the cute doofus. Don't know how to explain it, but other than Wendell Bambury may as well be Hal. Book Hal. They're the one and the same. Oh, also very much like Hal, Wendell loves his clothes. I was entertained, but thoroughly annoyed with most of the characters all the way through. It was the strangest experience I have ever had with a book. Wow. But yeah, it was strange. It was a strange time. Heather Fawcett, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia, Faeries are 3.5 stars. A wild time. I'm kind of tired now. I feel like I've ranted about books for a while, so it's probably a long enough video. But I have been watching Vera, Person of Interest, and many play streams. I slowly became a play fan account because my heart is with these lads right here. Otherwise, K-pop. There were some really good releases this year, and I'll probably put it all on a playlist and then also have it so strong. Some of my very favorites. SF9's Bibora. Excellent start. It was like my first one to my playlist. I wasn't vibing with a lot of songs, but Bibora by SF9 definitely. Was Wait for Love this year? By Plave. Excellent song. That entire album was impeccable. I found a lot of like new groups that I haven't really listened to, but like one-off ones like Beautiful Maze by Drippin', Somebody by Amers, Ensign, Happy End, of course, Earth, Wind and Fire by Boy Next Door. Ooh, Buy My Monster by On and Off. That is a classical masterpiece. It is so good. Epex, Youth to Youth. For some soloists, I Like the Way by Kim Woo Jin. Popcorn by D.O. More recently, we have Last Night by Jonghan and Wonu. I think that's the main ones. I'm sure there's a whole heap. And I haven't really been watching any K-dramas. So that is the first half of the year wrapped up with a little bow in it. Yeah, I know it wasn't very structured. There was no structure to this ranting. I might get more structured next semester. Who knows? But I also will have, 78 books at least to review. So it might have to be a little different. But I enjoyed ranting to you. So thank you for being here. If you read any of these, or maybe have any thoughts for other videos, or your own reading journey, let me know below in the comments. So until next time, I hope 5 stars are plentiful, and I hope that your journey is relaxed and a little bit exciting at times. And until next time, bye-bye.
ATINYログ